Hey, it's Joel Mark Witt and Antonia Dodge. Welcome to this webinar, Becoming a Personality Hacker, How to Deconstruct Personality Types Using the 8 Cognitive Functions. And we're happy you're here. And we want to talk about what we're going to be talking about. Antonia's going to talk about what we're going to talk about in this webinar tonight and what you're going to get out of it by being with us. And we're really glad you're here.
We are. So the purpose of this webinar is twofold. Actually, there's one major reason why we do a webinar like this every year in December, and that is because it is at this time of the year that we open up our Profiler Training Certification course enrollment. It happens once a year. And what we do is, in order to create some brouhaha around it, in order to create some excitement and buzz and give you a little insight into what the course provides, we always teach a portion of content. And that's for you guys. Like, regardless of whether or not it's the right time for you to invest in Profiler training right now, that's fine. We always want to make sure that we give a little bit to the community and at the same time introduce what we think is one of our most special, most important courses that we run every year. And it's become kind of a big deal. So what we're going to do is we're first going to give you just the free gift of the content. We're going to help you figure out how to figure out the cognitive function stack of a personality type. This is one of those elements, especially people who are just starting to get into cognitive functions. This is one of the biggest challenges that people experience. It's sort of a barrier of entry that makes it difficult for people to figure out what is, like, basically what is, how their mind is made up based on their Myers-Briggs personality type. So we're just going to give that to you, and we're going to start with that piece. But then we're going to talk about the Profiler Training Certification program, and we're going to introduce the program, what's in it, why it's cool and exciting, why we love this time of year, and why we think it might be a good fit for you. And so we invite you to stay on during that portion so we can talk about that piece and determine whether or not this course is the right course for you at this time. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some questions around it. We're going to talk about some cool packages we have, the tuition piece, and then we're going to announce our sweepstakes winners. Now, unfortunately, if you haven't already entered the sweepstakes, it's a little too late, but we're hoping that a lot of people who entered it are on the call tonight because that's kind of a big deal, and it's one of the cool things that we've never done before. So this is new to us to do a sweepstakes. And we have a first and second and third place winner, all in these sealed envelopes to make them ready to be announced. And we're going to do that at the end of the program right before we announce early enrollment for the course. All right, so that's what you can expect tonight. All right, and if you have any questions, like Joel said, you can go ahead and put them in the question and answer area. The challenge that we're going to experience tonight is that we have a lot of people on. I think we had like 700 people register for the webinar. So
Over 700.
Yeah, over 700. So we're going to have a lot of people on this webinar. And so we've had some mailed in questions, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. We'll reach out to you in some form. Maybe we'll shoot a Facebook Live, or maybe we'll send an email out with some of those questions. So we encourage you to do so. And of course, if you have any other questions, you can send them to info@personalityhacker.com. All right, so that's what you can expect from the webinar, and let's get going.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
So the first thing we want to talk about is effectively what you're going to get is a truncated version of one of our actual sessions in the Profiler Training Certification course. This is session 6, called the CAR model, or at least it's a portion of the CAR model. And this is one of the ways that we launch into talking about cognitive functions in the certification course. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to deconstruct how to figure out anybody's cognitive function stack, what's technically called their cognitive function stack, once you know what their 4-letter Myers-Briggs code is. But we're going to talk a little bit about what we call the sandwich. So first you have to understand that in the middle of the 4-letter code sits 2 letters. It's either S or N or T and F. And those are the keys to unlocking your cognitive functions. The S or N is technically called a perceiving process. And it's more than just sensing and intuition. There's 2 kinds of sensing and 2 kinds of intuition. But it's important to understand what the perceiving process does. It brainstorms, it makes connections, it learns without judgment, it gives you your aha moments, it just helps you in general remember. That's why it's called perceiving, because it takes in the landscape and it sucks information out based on what is interesting to it. Now, as mentioned, there are 2 kinds of sensing and 2 kinds of intuitive cognitive functions. And we won't do a deep dive into what those are, but suffice to say that that means that there's 4. So how do you know which one of the perceiving processes is yours is a very good question. So that's the first letter of that sandwich. In the 4-letter code, you've got an E or I, an S or N, a T or F, and a J or P. And the S and N, the JP and the EI kind of provide the bread, the outside of the sandwich, and the SN and TF provide the meat of it. And that's what we're really focusing on. Then you have the judging process. The judging process is either a thinking or a feeling process. The reason why it's called judging is because it judges, it evaluates, it determines the right action. It gives us an evaluation of good versus bad. It prioritizes and organizes information, and it thinks in should statements. All right? So the perceiving process that we just talked about doesn't do any of that. All right? It doesn't evaluate. It doesn't think in should statements. It doesn't create any sort of organization of the world. It's simply there to perceive and ruminate over information that it finds interesting. The judging process does think in should statements. It's very judgmental, and that's why it's called a judging process. And there are 2 kinds of thinking processes and 2 kinds of feeling processes, which we'll talk a little bit. We'll flay this out just a hair. But right now, what we're really trying to figure out is how do you figure out the cognitive function stack of any personality type? So these are the things you have to remember. Perceiving processes and judging processes. And they're 2 very different styles.
I just want to make a quick note here that this already is where some people, when they are first new to Myers-Briggs, I don't know where you are in your journey, but often what can happen is people get confused. The judging process, how is that different than being a judger? Someone that has that J as the last letter in their dichotomy, the 4-letter code basically. And the difference is that basically the judging process is the cognitive function you're using to make, like what Antonia said, evaluative decisions. And those are different things. There's a reason why they use the same word for 2 different things, but those are different things. And this is where some confusion can come in for people.
Exactly. So
we'll detail that out as we start to get into the actual dichotomies.
Right. Perceiver versus perceiving process. Judger versus judging process. Perceiver is the individual. Perceiving process is the function.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the same thing with judger versus judging. All right. All right, so how do you figure out what the judging process and the perceiving process is for any personality type? So we're going to take 2 different personality types and we're going to go through them. The first is we're going to do ESTJ. Now, do you notice that this is a sandwich, right? The E and J for an ESTJ provides the bread, and the S and the T provide the meat. The processes come from those 2 center letters. And of course, they refer to very different things. And we'll talk a little bit about what the cognitive functions for an ESTJ would be once we fillet them out. But this is right now figuring out the mechanics of it, or the algorithm of determining a person's cognitive functions based on their 4-letter code.
And if you're new to this, each one of these letters has 2 possibilities. So obviously the E has the opposite of it for I, extrovert, introvert. The S, sensor, the opposite would be intuitive. T would be thinker, the opposite would be feeler. And J for judger, the opposite would be perceiver. So there's 2 options at each one of these. And right now you're looking at obviously 4 of these that have been chosen. The S and the T, the opposite of S would be N. So this could possibly be an ENTJ. Or if you flip the T, it would be ESFJ. So you can see that there's differences here. And we're going to start talking about what that means in the sandwich here. But just understand that there's 2 possibilities for all of these letters.
But the most important thing is to remember that when you're looking for somebody's cognitive function stack, you are primarily focused in on the meat of the sandwich, the 2 center letters. That's very important. In this case, it's sensor and thinker. So how do you figure out what an ESTJ's cognitive function stack is? Now, again, if you're brand new to this, cognitive functions are the wiring of your mind that help you evaluate information or judge it, and help you learn new information or perceive it. And all of us have a combination of them. There are 8 cognitive functions in total, and every single person relies on 4 of them to be the primary way that they evaluate and learn new information. And they have a certain dynamic within those cognitive functions. But right now we're mostly talking about that sticking point that tons of people have when they're learning functions. How do you figure that out?
And I was just going to say, just as a quick side note, if the reason why this is important, when we start talking about the profiler training certification program, one of the things that the ability for you to work with the cognitive functions, the way someone is learning information and making decisions, as you're profiling someone in a professional setting, in a formal setting where you're asking actual set of questions, or just through casual conversation where you're basically casually profiling or conversationally profiling is what we call it, you're going to be looking for not just the dichotomies, these 4 letters here, but you're also going to be starting to pay attention to how their mind is wired. Which one of the cognitive functions are they starting to exhibit in how they're answering the questions or how they're engaging with you? And those are the things we teach in the program of what to be paying attention to. So as we unpack this, just understand that what we're giving you is some fidelity in being able to type somebody else. You're getting much more nuance and really understanding what's making them tick, how they're wired, and why this is important. So as you pay attention, this is all used in the profiling experience.
Yeah, this is like the bridge to go from the 4-letter code into the wiring of people's minds so that they can do a much deeper dive and understand. You can watch behaviors that are associated with multiple different types, but then find the source of the behavior, which is in the function and the wiring.
Yeah.
So this is your bridge to go from those 4-letter codes into the functions. All right, so how do we figure out what an ESTJ's cognitive function stack is? Well, the first thing we have to look at is the J. Now, this could also be a P, right? But the J or the P lets you know what your organizational style is, all right? So all of us like freedom in the outside world, in the world, and all of us like organization in the world. But there are 2 different places that we experience it. We can experience organization either in the outside world, which is kind of like those sayings like a place for everything and everything in its place, or I always make sure that I hang up my clothes at the end of the day, or just simply like I like my world to work like a well-oiled machine. You can still throw your clothes on the floor at the end of the day, but still like your world to work like a well-oiled machine and want everything in its place. So that is one style of organization, is when you want your organization in the outside world. Another form of an organization is when you want it in your internal world, inside of yourself. So the question would be, how do you organize inside of yourself? Well, you organize internally by having your thoughts meticulously organized and your feelings meticulously organized, which means that you ruminate on a regular basis about how you're thinking or how you're feeling. You're going in, and just like a person would clean up a house if they are a person who wants outer world organization, you clean up your internal world. You're going through scanning for thoughts that might be and I'm using this word to not indicate what it usually means, but dirty, like basically corrupted data. So you're scanning your mind to clean up all of that corrupted data internally, just like you might clean up your outer world space for like clutter. You're decluttering your mind, and you can do that with your emotions too. You can go inside and figure out what's truly in alignment for you, and what are the emotions internally that are actually not authentic, or what are the thoughts or feelings that are not authentic. And so you're constantly cleaning up clutter in your inner world. So your organization style can either be outer world or it can be inner world. And that last letter, the J or the P, is your clue to which organizational style that you prefer. So for a judger, the organizational style will always be external. And for a perceiver, the organizational style will always be internal. Now remember before we talked about a judging function, not a judger, but a judging function is always thinking and feeling, right? That's that 3rd letter in the 4-letter code. That is always going to be the judging process. You do it with thinking or feeling. And if you're a judger, your judging process of thinking or feeling is always externalized, or what we call extroverted. So it's annotated with a small letter E to indicate external or extroverted. If you're a perceiver in the Myers-Briggs system, your organization always happens internally or on an introverted level. So if you're a perceiver, next to your T or F, you always annotate it with like a little I. Right? Introverted thinking or introverted feeling. And that's the first thing you have to look at in the 4-letter code. Are they a judger or are they a perceiver? And that lets you know which little letter you annotate next to the T or the F. So what I would recommend you do is right now, write out your 4-letter code, whatever your type is. Look at the last letter. Is it a J or is it a P? If it is a J, write a little E next to the T or F. And if it's a P for perceiver, write a little I next to the T or F. Want to show them?
So basically for my type, I'd be writing an ENFP here. And then I'm going to write a little I next to the F there. So you can see like a little I because I'm a perceiver. So I'm a perceiver. I organize my inner world, and I'm a feeler. So I'm going to put a little I next to the F there, meaning that I have my organization internal, and I'm feeling.
Exactly.
So go ahead and do that now, if you can, if you have a piece of paper at your disposal or at your ready.
All right. So once you've done that, somebody said, what about those who don't feel organized in any world?
Well, we can't help you on this webinar. It'll have to be another training.
Yeah, we can diagnose which world you're supposed to be organized in, and then you're going to have to take it from there.
That's how I feel most of the time.
Yeah. All right. So, you also want freedom, okay? Every human being wants freedom as well. And your freedom happens in the world, or what's technically called the attitude, that is opposite of your organization. So if you want organization in the outside world, then you want your freedom to be internal. And if you want organization in the inner world, then you want your freedom to be external. All right? And that's how it works. So now you use that J or P to annotate which world you want your freedom in. So if you are a sensor, an intuitive, and a judger, if you're a judger, write a little I next to the S or the N to indicate internal or introverted sensing or intuition. And if you're a perceiver, if you're a P at the end of your 4-letter code, then you want your freedom to be external or in the extroverted world. So next to the S or the N, annotate it with a little E.
So what you would have right now is 4 letters with either an E or an I next to the second and third letter in the dichotomies going across the 4 letters. So I wrote like a little E next to my N.
All right. So let's look at this in real-world application. So ESTJ, the first letter we look at to determine the favorite process of an ESTJ, by the way, we're not just looking for cognitive functions, but also we're looking for what's technically called a stack, or the order in which these cognitive functions fall. So you don't just find what your preferred functions are, you also figure out what your favorite function is, or in the CAR model, what we call the driver process. So this is your driver. The technical name is dominant cognitive function. So we're looking for your dominant or your driver process. So once you know which little letters go next to the S and the T, now what you're doing is you're engineering which one of those two is your favorite. So for an ESTJ, what we're now looking for is the first letter or the other slice of bread, right? We looked at the J, at the last letter, that was one slice of bread that helped us determine where we wanted our organization, where we wanted our freedom. But the first letter helps us determine which one of those two functions is our favorite function. And don't worry about it, we'll break it down for you if that's a little confusing. So we know that an ESTJ is a judger, and that tells us that they want to extrovert their judging or their thinking process in this case, right? Because thinking is the judging process. So since they're a judger, we know they want to extrovert or externalize their organization and the decision making, which is thinking, so they extrovert their thinking process. And that means by definition, they're automatically introverting their sensing process, right? They want inner world freedom or perception and outer world organization. All right, so we know the judger tells us extroverted thinking, introverted sensing. But which one tells us their favorite? Well, if you're pattern recognizing already, you can probably determine which one is their favorite. And that is the one that matches that first letter, which is E for extroversion. So therefore, their favorite or dominant cognitive process is extroverted thinking. So an ESTJ's dominant driver favorite process is extroverted thinking, supplemented, and we call it effectiveness. That's our nickname for it. And then it gets supplemented by the auxiliary or the co-pilot process of introverted sensing, or what we call memory. Now, in the Profire Training Certification course, we sort of use these interchangeably because it's easiest to remember the functions by their nicknames, but we also talk about them in their technical names and in their shorthand. So you learn all of it. Therefore, if you're talking to other students and enthusiasts, personality hacker enthusiasts, you can use the cognitive function nicknames. But if you're talking to anybody else outside of our ecosystem, you know the shorthand and you know the technical names as well. So you have an education on all of it. So the dominant driver process for an ESTJ is extroverted thinking, annotated by that TE, or what we call effectiveness. And their secondary, auxiliary, or co-pilot process is introverted sensing, SI, or what we call memory. All right, does that all make sense? So that's the auxiliary process. Somebody said, will we have access to this webinar later? You will. This is all being recorded and it will be uploaded later.
We'll record it and upload it to the website.
Somebody said, why must freedom and organization be dichotomous? Why could you not desire inner organization and freedom? Well, the challenge here is that even though we actually do like both, but there's one dominant way of engaging with the world. And this is what we call the cost of specialization, okay? You can't specialize in both because we don't have our split attention. And if we did that, if we didn't have the cost of specialization, it means that we'd all be kind of mundane at everything. It's just the way that our brains are wired. Our brains are wired to give us certain talents and skills, right? Like, if you notice, most of the people in your life are not talented at literally everything. But they're also not terrible at literally everything either. The way that we're wired to operate is that we have certain things that catch our attention, certain things that we find fascinating and interesting, certain things we have certain talents in that, you know, we usually have to build skill in them, but we have talents in them as like sort of an inherited thing. And it's the cost of specialization. You can't be talented at literally everything, and that means that we're not mundane at literally everything. So it's just the way the brain is wired. The brain is wired to specialize in certain things. We actually do have a desire for external freedom and organization and inner freedom and organization. We do have it to some extent, and I'll show you what that looks like in the stack or in the car model. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But there is one way in which our brains are wired to specialize so that there's not gridlock. Does that make sense?
And as you're learning the system, especially as you're learning the system, I mean, originally, when you first learn about Myers-Briggs, you're presented with the dichotomies, the 4-letter code of your personality. And it's very dichotomous. You're either an extrovert or an introvert. You're either a sensor or an intuitive. You're either a thinker or a feeler. You're either a perceiver or a judger. Very dichotomous. And as you get into the cognitive functions, you realize, oh, it's not so dichotomous. We actually have all of these parts of us. It's to what degree do we have them? So we're all extroverted and we're all introverted. It's what is more dominant for us and which one takes more of a back seat or a side seat to that. And which, you know, we're all we all have sensory parts of us. We all have intuitive parts of us. Which ones are more nuanced and deeper in our stack or higher up and more prevalent to how we show up in the world. So what's great about this is what cognitive functions give us is much more fidelity in understanding how we're really wired. And as you go through profiler training and you start understanding how this works, you realize, oh, I see. It's much more nuanced. It's not as dichotomous. Your instincts are right by asking about that because it isn't as dichotomous as it's presented to you on the surface level.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's use me as an example. And somebody said, well, what if you're an introvert and a judger or an extrovert and a perceiver? Well, I will show you because I am an extrovert and a perceiver. I am an ENTP.
Dun,
all
dun,
right?
dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. I'm an extrovert. So I prefer outer world over inner world. I'm an intuitive. And we didn't break this part down, but our definition of intuition is advanced pattern recognition. I prefer to know what's going on behind the curtain as opposed to what's in front of the curtain. So my intuition has me trying to figure out what's going on behind the curtain based on the clues I can see around me. Which means that by definition, the things I'm most interested in are things that I can never actually truly know, but that's okay because it's so fascinating to think about. So that's how we define intuitive. So I'm an extrovert, I prefer my outer world, and that's the real world to me. I'm an intuitive, I have advanced pattern recognition as a preference. I'm a thinker, which means that I decide using metrics and impersonal criteria, and I'm a perceiver, which means that I like my inner world to be organized and I like outer world freedom, or I have a preference for that, even though as we mentioned, there's a little of both, and I'll tell you about that in a moment, but that's my general preference. So the first letter we look at, the P, right? The last letter or one of the pieces of bread. So we always look at the last letter to determine a person's function stack. I'm a perceiver, so I extrovert or externalize my understanding process. In this case, it's intuition. And the reason why I do that is because I want my freedom in the outside world, and intuition provides freedom for me because it doesn't require me to do any organization, right? It's just a perceiving process, all right? So I like my outer world to be, I have a strong preference for outer world freedom. So I annotate the N with a little E, right? Extroverted intuition. And then by definition, because my strong preference is to have extroverted intuition, my thinking process or my judging process is internalized or introvert. I introvert my decision-making process, in this case, thinking. All right, so I annotate that with a little I. And right now, I'll tell you, if you're like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to have extrovert on one and introvert on the other? Why can't they both be extroverted, or why can't they both be introverted? And the reason why is because that would actually make you a crazy person. All human beings need to be able to do 4 things. We all need a way to take in new information. We all need a way to determine the value and worth of that information. We all need a way to get in touch with who we are on the inside, and we all need a way to get outer world feedback, all right? If we don't have all 4 of those, we aren't a complete person. If we don't have a way to take in new information and we only ever are deciding and judging, it means that we get caught in a judgment loop, all right? We never take in any new information. All we're doing is just determining the value or worth of things without having a full grasp of what's going on. So obviously you need a perceiving process and a judging process, right? You need a way to take in new information and determine its value. If you only had a perceiving process, if you were only taking in new information and you never had a way to determine its value, then you would never be able to make a decision about anything. You would basically just be sitting there, or you'd be gathering information, aimlessly wandering around. You'd either be a yogi at the top of a mountain, just like constantly meditating, and rats chew off your fingers because you never do anything and you die of starvation, or you do the same thing by wandering the earth and bumping into things. So you have to be able to determine the value or worth of something in order to make decisions around that. So everybody has to have a perceiving process and a judging process to be complete. But we also need them to represent 2 different worlds, or what's technically called attitudes. We have to have a way to get in touch with who we are internally. If we don't have a way to get in touch with ourselves internally, we are constantly being basically like pushed around and shoved around by the outer world feedback, right? That is a person who would have 2 extroverted processes. They would never be able to get in touch with what means something to them internally or who they are on the inside. So you have to have at least 1 extroverted and 1 introverted process in order to be complete. And it's the same thing in the opposite direction. If you only ever went inside yourself, again, you would never be able to engage with the outer world, and you would never know whether or not you were caught in some sort of like psychotic loop, right? It's basically the definition to some extent of schizophrenia, is that you are completely in an internalized world and unable to engage with the outside world. So you need those 4 things to be a complete person. And these 2 functions represent all 4 of them. They represent a decision-making process and a learning process or perceiving process. And they represent inner world, getting to know yourself, being able to determine who you are, being able to go inside and introspect, and they represent outer world feedback. All right, so they give you these 2 processes give you those 4 things no matter which personality type you are. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we figured out that I use extroverted intuition and introverted thinking. We figured that out just by knowing the last letter of my type, right? The P. So what else do we know about my type? Well, I'm an extrovert. That means I favor my extroverted process. And in this case, it's intuition. So that makes extroverted intuition my dominant, or what we call my driver process. So I go ahead and just put like a little square around that. That's my driver or dominant process. And that means that the other cognitive function by default becomes my introverted process, or my supportive process, the co-pilot. All right, so now I know what the 2 first cognitive functions in my stack are. I know it's extroverted intuition and introverted thinking. So I'm halfway there. Make sense?
So you can basically do this at home. You could write down, I didn't mean to hijack what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You can basically write down any 4-letter code for any of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types, and you can basically use this system to determine what the 2 cognitive functions the person is using based on their type. You look at the last letter first, the J and P. So you determine which one of those functions they're extroverting to the world, whether it's their perceiving process or their judging process. Once you know that, the other one by definition is introverted. And then you determine which one is the first or the driver position, the dominant, based on that first letter, the E or the I. And you would just match the attitude of the function to that first letter, and now you know which one is the primary one. So you can do this for all 16 types. You could literally just write them all down and do this for each on a worksheet if you wanted.
So my recommendation is you do this right now, right? So you've got your 4 letters. You look at the last letter. Is it a J or P? And you annotate the thinking or feeling based on J or P. You do the opposite with S or N. You look at the first letter, and then you figure out which of those 2 is your favorite. You circle it. You underline the one that's the other one. And then now you have your driver and your co-pilot. It makes it actually, it's a little bit of an algorithm, but once you kind of spell it out a couple times, it becomes quite easy.
This is kind of like the wax on, wax off experience. Have you ever seen The Karate Kid or Mr. Miyagi, the old one from like the 1980s, where he's got to wax on and wax off over and over again? This is basically that. So as we're gearing into becoming a profiler in the profiler training certification course, we spend a lot of time on the mechanics of this, basically, how to reverse engineer the dichotomies into cognitive functions, because if you can do this backward and forward, and eventually you'll get to where you can start with the cognitive functions and then write out the 4-letter code from those. So you can go back and forth between the two. That's the wax on and wax off process, to then use that when you're profiling someone, when you're sitting down and talking to them. This is in your head or you have your notes or whatever, you're able to use this now in the actual profiling experience.
Right, because most online tests and even the Myers-Briggs type indicator instrument, like pretty much almost all of them, with very few exceptions, are looking for your 4-letter code. And there is something to be said for the 4 dichotomies having a strong influence over who you are as a human being, and that your behaviors will manifest from those 4 letters. But we are all very complex, and we have a lot of things that seem to go against type, right? People are like, oh, I'm this type, but I'm not a very usual one. Well, that could literally be said for every single person on the planet. I mean, there's 7 billion people and 16 types, so we're all going to be a variation of it. When you go into the cognitive functions, you start to be able to fillet out why you're behaving the way you're behaving and how many different styles and ways that it can manifest. Extroverted intuition has way more fidelity than just intuition does. Extroverted intuition is very different than, say, introverted intuition. So why are NJs, who would use introverted intuition, so different from NPs that would use extroverted intuition? We're all intuitive, aren't we kind of the same? And to some extent, yes, but in other ways, we're wildly different. So being able to, in a profiling session, being able to watch for that little detail, are they using extroverted intuition or introverted intuition? And we start being able to see all of the little markers of those, all the behavioral patterns and the markers, then you automatically have 2 letters. You have NP or NJ as opposed to just intuitive, which is 1 letter. So we talk a lot about being able to reverse engineer these, being able to look for all these different markers, and being able to sort of cross-pollinate all of this information to get a very accurate type. Somebody asked, why did the functions have to alternate extroverted, introverted, or reversed? And I hope I answered that by saying we have to have a way to engage with both of those worlds. And so if we have a favorite in either the extroverted or the introverted attitude, if we have one that we massively favor, then the other one has to have a representation, and it has to be very close to us. It can't just be something that's further down in our stack. It has to be one that is immediately accessible. It has to basically sit next to the driver as a co-pilot, because if it doesn't, if they were both extroverted or both introverted, we'd be in a world of hurt. It would basically be a form of psychosis to be only introverted or only extroverted. So hopefully that kind of answered that question. All right, so does this make sense? You use the last letter to determine whether or not your thinking or feeling process is internalized or externalized, and then you, by definition, reverse it for the sensing or the intuitive. You use the first letter of that dichotomy then to determine which is the favorite, and then whichever is not the favorite automatically becomes the auxiliary process. Does that all make sense?
We just had a couple people join us, and a few people just join us, a handful of people join us. I want to let you know that we are recording this, and barring any technical glitches, we're going to go ahead and take the recording and upload it later so you can rewatch the replay later if you've missed any of what we've talked to up till now.
Yep, exactly. And somebody asked, are we going to share the slides? And the answer is yes. All right. So let's put it in the car model. All right. So as we keep talking about dominant and driver synonymously.
And this is your personality type.
This is me. This is ENTP. You see my little name right there, Antonia. All right. So what we're going to do is we're now going to put it in the car model. The driver, the co-pilot, the 10-year-old, and the 3-year-old. Excuse me. So the dominant is the same as the driver. Extroverted intuition, what we call exploration. We already figured out that my not favorite is introverted thinking, or what we call accuracy. So how do I figure out what my 10-year-old and my 3-year-old in my car model are, or what's technically called my tertiary and inferior cognitive functions? How do you figure out that? Well, that's actually the easiest part. Once you know what your dominant and your auxiliary are, your driver or co-pilot, you just reverse them to figure out what the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old are. And the reason why we like the car model is because it reminds us to look at these as sort of attached to each other.
There's a relationship between them.
Exactly. So the exact opposite of my co-pilot. So whatever my co-pilot is, I just reverse it to find out what my 10-year-old is. So if my co-pilot is introverted thinking, my 10-year-old is extroverted feeling, or what we call harmony. And if my driver is extroverted intuition, that makes my 3-year-old automatically introverted sensing, or what we call memory. So that's how you figure out what your entire car model is, or your cognitive function stack. You simply reverse it to determine what is basically sitting underneath it. Now, oh, go ahead.
No, please.
What's interesting is that in the certification course, we talk a lot about a concept we call polarities. And polarities are taking these functions, which are usually seen as isolated in silos from each other, like extroverted intuition is totally opposite from introverted sensing. Polarities are a theory that they're actually not two separate things. They are the same, they are two sides of the same coin, that they're intrinsically linked and they have a relationship with each other and certain things that they're focused on that are interesting to the two of them together. So extroverted intuition and introverted sensing we call them opposites, but really think of them as two sides of the same coin. And the same applies with introverted thinking and extroverted feeling. They're two sides of the same coin as well, as are all of the cognitive functions and their polarities. So we go into polarities, we talk about how those are motivations for us, what to look for in polarities when you're doing a profiling session, how to determine which polarity set a person is using, not just their dichotomies and not just their cognitive functions.
Couple notes. We have hundreds of people on here tonight, and we have limited time. So we just blasted through that session. In the actual profile training course would have taken probably an hour, I think, an hour and 15 minutes.
I think the whole session on that one is probably 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty long because there's a lot of nuance there and we take a lot of time. So if you're confused or you're panicked saying, I have no idea what you just covered, that is overwhelming to me, just realize that was a very compressed version of it. And we had to go very quickly for the sake of time. But understand that's the mechanics basically. If you do know what's going on, you probably were following along and kind of had a sense of what we're charting out here. And what's great about this, just looking at this car model, if you're talking to somebody, let's say you're in a profiling session with somebody who is an ENTP, what you're going to do is in that profile session, you're going to start looking at the different behaviors and the different ways that they're showing up using all of these parts of themselves, not just the driver or the co-pilot. And we teach in the Profiler Training Certification course how to look at things like the 3-year-old or inferior process even, how it shows up in little tiny almost ways the person you're talking with may not even realize. And same thing with that 10-year-old or what's technically called the tertiary level. There's all sorts of ways that we show up as people using all of our personality. And in Profiler Training, we really talk a lot about how to watch for those things, because if you know what you're looking for, this is where you get really good at typing people, where you really get good at being able to have a conversation and understand how they're wired, because you're going to know the difference between a behavior that seems like one thing versus a behavior that's actually something else, because you're going to have an understanding of this on a very nuanced level. Mm-hmm. So it's really important as you're learning the program, because I'm guessing you might be watching right now and you're excited and you know the enrollment period for Profiler Training is going to open very soon at the end of this webinar basically, and it's going to be open for the next week or so. And you might want to join and you're excited about this, and I want you to understand that it is very nuanced. It's very much a deep understanding of how all of this works to enable you to sit down with somebody and profile them in a robust way. So I think that's just a quick note to make about it.
So, somebody asked, how does introverted sensing work for ENTPs? And the answer is, for every single person, the 3-year-old process is what we call the aspiration. And we go deep into that in the course. We talk about what that means for it to be an aspiration, but it's also a blind spot. So we have a very interesting relationship with the 3-year-old. And introverted sensing can look like just having a blind spot around doing mundane things like going to the DMV or having your paperwork all in line. It can look like a reluctance to have acceptance in your life. Introverted sensing is very good at acceptance, and having it as a 3-year-old process means you might be really bad at acceptance, and you might have a real struggle with accepting reality for what it is. And it can also look like a voice that's whispering in the back of your ear, right? In the back of your mind. Like you want to change how things are structured, right? Maybe on a big level. Maybe you want to blaze everything to the ground and rebuild it all again. So we actually did a podcast on this. So if you are interested, I would recommend going and checking out the podcast on the inferior process. But in the certification course, we dive into not just how it's an aspiration, but we dive into what it looks like as part of that polarity with extroverted intuition, because it's looking at certain things as a conglomerate, right? As a relationship with each other. Think of this as like a comet, with your driver process as the head of the comet and the 3-year-old is sort of the tail. It's following you wherever you go. So no matter what type you are, whatever your 3-year-old process is a tail that's influencing all of your decisions or the things that you're finding particularly interesting, depending upon if your driver is a judging or perceiving process. And we go into all of that in the certification course.
We also talk about stuff depending on how you were brought up, your family dynamics, your age, your gender, your maybe your culture. We talk about how certain aspects of your car model, these 4 cognitive functions that really help define who you are and your personality. We talk a lot about how they get maybe encouraged to grow in certain ways and where they exhibit themselves. And again, the reason that's important is when you're profiling other people, understanding yourself is important, but really the point is to lead you toward the second part of the program, which we're going to talk about here in a second, which is the actual profiling of others. Understanding how these really manifest themselves depending on culture and language and upbringing and all that is key, because these are things to watch out for as you're triangulating somebody's type.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I keep harping on that, but it's important to know that understanding this at a deep level makes you a really great profiler.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody asked, they said they have to leave to take care of their son and they're going to miss the announcement for the sweepstakes. Does that mean that they forfeit their right to win? And the answer is no. We're going to announce them tonight. You get to know who they are ahead of time, but all of the winners will be emailed tomorrow. So if you have to go take care of your son, please do that. And it's just exciting to stay on the webinar because you'll get to know ahead of time who the winners are. Otherwise, we're announcing them all through email tomorrow. All right, and somebody says, did its inferior FE make a person appear unapproachable? It can sometimes, but not always, actually. And we're going to talk about an INTP that took the course and some of the huge gains he made by understanding extroverted feeling as his 3-year-old process. So that's not a fate of yours if you have extroverted feeling as the baby in your backseat.
Have we had every single type take the course yet? Or we're missing a couple types still, right? But we've had almost every type take it.
We've had, I think we've had 13 of the 16 types.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're one of the 3, you have to sign up.
We won't.
It's your homework. We won't tell you which. You just have to guess and sign up, and hopefully that's you.
All right, so I just want to check in. Did that make sense to everybody? Figuring out your car model, your cognitive function stack. It didn't answer what all of that meant. It didn't answer what each of the cognitive functions are and the nuances. It didn't go into a deep dive of each of the dichotomies. It just showed you the algorithm of figuring out your function stack. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more content around this. The Profiler Training Certification course, we'll talk about this in a little bit, is like 40 plus sessions. So there's a lot that goes into it. But did this make sense on how to figure out? Okay, somebody said, firstly, this is incredibly informative. Studying MBTI for 3 years, as you said, working out the functions from Strax has always baffled me. So big thank you for doing this. It all makes sense now. Awesome. That was what we were hoping for. Again, even if it's not the right time for you right now with the course, we just want to make sure that we give something of value to the community, and we know that this is a big one. Figuring out the function stacks is like, that's the hill that always needs to be surmounted in order to open up your world of function. So I'm so glad that it was able to be helpful to you.
That's awesome.
RS, taking notes. Awesome. So big thank you, makes sense.
So,
Did you ever have an ESFJ? Yes, we have.
yeah.
Taking notes now. Amazing. Thank you so much. Agree with that person. Awesome. All right. Somebody says we're gonna talk about tuition a little bit. Somebody asked if the profiling course is discounted, and we're gonna talk about tuition, what that really looks like. Good explanation, easier to understand.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. So hang tight. We're gonna talk about tuition in just a moment. And yeah, so cool. Glad that it was helpful. Hopefully this opens up a whole world. Again, even if it's not the right time for you, hopefully this opens up a whole world of accessing the cognitive functions that you can go look up on your own. And of course, we have a lot of resources and materials at personalityhacker.com to talk about the functions, what they look like, what the CAR model is for all the types. So hopefully that was really helpful for you. All right. So what do you need in order to be good at something? All right. And that's a really big question that we asked ourselves when we put together the course, the Profiler training course. What does a person need in order to truly gain mastery in any skill? And when we talk about the training course, certification course, what we did not want people to be is we didn't want them to be facilitators of a test. We didn't want them to be the human versions of a digital online test where you just like ask people questions. Do you lead with your heart or do you lead with your head, right? And somebody's like, oh, I lead with my heart. Oh, you're a feeler, right? And just be done. We did not want that. We wanted people to have deep, rich mastery over understanding how people are wired on a fundamental level. So not only were they able to help determine somebody's personality type, that's like the scratching the surface at the top, they would be able to use that information for application and some deep work, all right, on themselves and on other people. So the big question we asked is, how do you reach mastery, all right? Now, there is a theory, and it's in the book Outliers, right, by Malcolm Gladwell, a book that Joel and I have both read and loved. And his theory was that you needed 10,000 hours of practice to do something. And there was another person who said, is it just 10,000 hours of doing something? Is that what you need to gain mastery? And so they did a deep dive hunt on what it actually takes to gain mastery. They determined it was 3 different conditions. Condition number 1 is you turn your theories into application through deliberate practice. All right? Deliberate practice is different than 10,000 hours.
Yeah, it means you've got a specific plan for what you're doing, and you're applying that plan. Basically, you're taking practice and you're putting it into action. Because there's this one thing to just absorb information and learn something, but when you start to apply it, it changes the whole game for you, because it's like your body has to be engaged. Your emotions have to be engaged. Your thought have to be aligned and engaged. So you're taking that knowledge and translating it actually into skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the condition number 1. So it's not just doing it. It's not just pouring time and effort into doing it. It's deliberate practice. All right. So it has to be applied. The second condition is you receive credible feedback from qualified peers, coaches, or mentors. All right. So you need a feedback mechanism. You can't just be doing it. You have to have a feedback loop and a feedback mechanism to indicate whether or not you're making progress. You're doing a better job, right? If you don't have a feedback loop, you can think, oh, I'm really good at this. I'm really awesome at what I'm doing, and I've done it a lot, so therefore I must be amazing. But if you have nobody that goes, yeah, that's not how that works, right? Or you've got 10 people and 9 are like, yeah, you did a good job, and one person's like, right? You can go like, hey, those 9 people gave me the feedback that I'm on the right course, so I should keep going on this trajectory. Yeah. Or vice versa. You get 10 people, and one person's like, woohoo, you're doing amazing. And 9 people are like, what is going on, right? So you have to have not just one feedback mechanism, you have to have a lot of feedback mechanisms. You have to know whether or not credible people are indicating your level of progress, all right? Because otherwise you can't calibrate. And calibration is massive.
That's a word that's been floating in my head for the last couple of years, this idea of calibration. And calibration really separates people that have created that mastery versus people that haven't.
Exactly. All right, so the third condition to master a skill is to become involved with the support community to stay accountable. All right, so community keeps you motivated, it keeps you inspired, it helps you with your deliberate practice, it gives you that feedback mechanism, and it keeps your spirits up, right? So the 3 conditions are that you have to be doing deliberate practice, you have to have a feedback mechanism, and you have to have a community that keeps you accountable and excited, right? And this is very important for us because we wanted to make sure during the course that we provided all the necessary tools for a person to not just become, to shove their brains with information and content, right? Which is something that is easy to fall back on in a course is to just go, I'm going to data dump. Actually, that's one of the things that I have a challenge with is I just data dump people. I'm just like, shove more information into the brain, right? And we went, actually, that's not working. It's getting people a lot of information, but no actual mastery or skill. So in the earliest incarnations of this course, it was a data dump and it wasn't working, right? Like it was okay. It was all right, but it wasn't mastery. So we did a massive refab on the entire course and went, these are the 3 things that people need to be truly good. And so what we did is we created the Personality Hacker Profile Training Certification 2.0, all right? And it is in a fully immersive, interactive experience developed to help you cultivate, calibrate, and perfect your profiling skill. So you can use it to go to the next level in your career, relationships, and personal development journey. So that's like the superscript, but that is exactly what we wanted it to be. We wanted it to be something that was more than just a data dump. We wanted it to be an immersive experience. We were effectively learning not just data and information. There's a model called DIKW. It stands for Data, Information, Knowledge, and Wisdom. Data is like little data points or pieces of information that you can call. We just gave you some pieces of information tonight. Information is knowing what to do with that data. So actually we gave you a little information too, right? We gave you some data and information. Here's how you figure out your cognitive function stack depending on your 4-letter code. But we wanted to take people into knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is applied information. It's knowing what to do with it. And wisdom is getting so good at that knowledge or the application that you can start, you know which rules you can break effectively. You get to a place of mastery where you know where the knowledge is applicable and where it isn't. And we want to take people out of data and information and into knowledge and wisdom. So we created the 2.0 certification course. Chris says, Antonia, I love the data dump. I know, but Chris, you're an INTP. I know who you are. I know. We all love the data dump as the NTPs. I understand. All right. Somebody says, will people that previously purchased the Profile Training Certification course have access to the 2.0 content? All alumni have access to everything we create for Profiler Training forever. That's one of the advantages to going through Profiler Training Certification course is that you officially, like for the first year in it, you're a brand new student and we love you and we treat you like gold because we want to make sure we get as much of that knowledge and wisdom in you as possible. But if you're an alumni, that means you get the advantage to forever having access to the course and all of the upgrades that we provide. So yes, you do get...
You're basically joining a community of like you're joining a community for the rest of the experience of it. So
exactly.
It's a one-time joining of that. And we had one of our students from 6 years ago come to our live event last year and work on some calibration there. And then we've had other students from 5 or 6 years ago join us on our question and answer sessions every month that we host. So you're welcome to come back and be a part of that for forever, as long as we continue offering that program going forward.
Yeah, and there are certain upgrades and new packages and features that we provide that not everybody who's been a part of the group or a part of the course before automatically gets, but they always, if we provide a package that is a new package for the certification course, we always offer it to alumni at a discounted rate. So alumni also get advantages by having their early adopters, right? Anybody that comes in as we're continually calibrating this course and making it better, we want to honor that early adopters were there. And so we'd like to treat our alumni very well. So thank you very much for the question, Ashley. It's a good one. All right, so the Profiler Training Certification 2.0. What is in the package? All right. Well, it's a 40-plus session course. And when we say 40-plus session course, we're actually talking about the core content is 40 sessions. That doesn't include all of the bonuses. You get a ton of bonuses on top of it, but let's just talk about those 40-plus sessions that are the main content. The modules cover the 4 dichotomies, of course, and our interpretation of those 4 dichotomies, because we feel like the way dichotomies have been explained actually creates confusion around them. It makes it more difficult to be able to spot it in the wild and to know what your dichotomies are. Am I a thinker or am I a feeler? How should I define that? Am I a sensor and intuitive? Am I a judge or perceiver? Am I an introvert or an extrovert, which is the big one right now? So it's our interpretation of the dichotomies, which we believe is very close to the spirit of Carl Jung originally and Catherine and Isabel right? Myers-Briggs, and that they actually help clarify things as opposed to generate more confusion. There's the 8 cognitive functions that we go into in depth. It's a massive deep dive into those functions. We talk about the 16 types, obviously, right, and how the functions manifest in those types. We talk about the 4 Keirsey temperaments, which of course go back to the 4 humors. And we talk about the polarities, remember, which is the relationship that the cognitive functions have with each other. We also go into our proprietary, what we call FIRM model. And the FIRM model is something that we only teach in courses at this time. The FIRM model is a way to understand type based on our fixations. Each personality type has a different fixation based on their 4-letter code. And so we talk about the fixations of each personality type and how to observe when somebody is healthy and unhealthy. We talk about defense strategies for each type, and we do live and passive profiling sessions all throughout the series. And in fact, that's a major benefit, is one of our bonuses, is that we go through what's called the 16 avatars, which are profiling sessions that you get to listen to for all of the 16 types.
I don't know if the next slide has us on this, so I might be jumping ahead because we reworked some of the slides. But I just want to mention that the course, so first of all, just from a delivery standpoint, when you join the course, you have access to the back end of our membership platform. So you log into a membership platform, a site, where all of the content is housed. So there's drop-down menus with each of the sessions organized by topic, so you can find those, and then each one of those is time-stamped with the timestamp of the video that you're watching, so you can find certain pieces. So as you've gone through the whole thing, you can also go back and restudy different aspects of that as you want to improve upon your skill set, understanding the entire system, just the Myers-Briggs system in general at first. And then the format is rich media. So you have a slide, similar to what you're seeing right now on this webinar, a slide next to a video shot of us teaching. So you have a video of us live talking into the camera, and also a slide there with the information on that. And the downloads of that session and the slides and other things of that nature as well, you can access there. And so that's just the core content. And it's basically split into, and again, forgive me if this is on the next slide, I'll just jump ahead.
Go ahead.
It's split into 2 major sections. The entire course is split into 2 major sections. And the first section is all the theory and the understanding of the system itself, the depth of understanding how all of this works. How do you reverse engineer the dichotomies to cognitive functions? What are the cognitive functions like? All of the system. And really the second part of the course is taking that, like we talked about those 3 things, applied knowledge or applied application of really understanding something. The second part of that, the second phase of that, I should say, is really applying that, getting into the actual profiling of someone, sitting down with them formally or even just having a casual conversation and learning how to take all of the theory that you've learned and now apply it in a real world setting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we also have, somebody keeps asking a question.
Sure.
I'm just going to interrupt what we're talking about to answer it. Somebody's like, what are the types? A couple of people have asked, what are the types that haven't taken the course yet?
At the time of this recording, because you might be watching this 5 years from now.
That's right. So maybe later on it will be false information. But it's an ISTP, an ISFP, and an ESTP. Those are the 3 types we have not yet had. Actually, that's not true.
ESFP.
We've had an ISFP.
Would you say ESFP?
We've had an ESFP.
What did you say?
I said ESTP. I think it's an ESTP and ISTP are the only 2 types. Now that I think about it, they're the only 2 types that haven't taken the course.
ISTJ?
No, we've had an ISTJ.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so it's only 2, not 3. You're right.
2.
No, actually, you're absolutely right.
The 2 STPs. But maybe after this, we will have nabbed our final 2.
If you're an STP, you have to sign up now. You're required to.
You're required to.
Just because we said so.
All right, so you also get a 10-month syllabus to guide your learning. Now, the 10-month syllabus, it's actually, you get dumped with everything when you first sign up. You get everything as soon as you enroll. You get all of it. And I know a lot of people who have gone through the course instantaneously, but what's great, and we're going to have her on in just a moment, is that we actually have somebody who is our community leader and the person who has gone through Profiler training herself and helped us craft the community experience. Her name is Kimberly, and we'll have her on in just a moment. And she's created a 10-month syllabus to guide your learning, which is a lot of interactive elements. So if you want to learn it on your own, you can. You can just grab it, data dump yourself, and go figure it out on your own if you want to, but we strongly recommend going through the syllabus. It is a 10th-month syllabus course that gets you from 0 to certified. And it includes a lot of community aspects and a lot of interchange. Remember, what do you need for mastery? You need feedback mechanisms and a community to support you. And those are the two major pieces that we have introduced in the last couple of years. And so we truly recommend that you go through the syllabus and do the peer learning process. And that's where you get the rich, vibrant community of fellow students and Slack communities, as well as Profilers training, or Profilers Facebook group. Slack is an interactive messaging system that we use in-house at Personality Hacker. We use it for our team. And it's made life a million times easier. And we were both resistant to it at first. We were like, oh, I don't want to use it. But now we're like true believers in Slack. Slack is amazing. And Kimberly will talk a little bit about what the Slack looks like in a little bit. But it's communities designed for peer learning and to keep you engaged and inspired and sharpening the saw. And so that's a major piece of the Profiler training certification course.
Yeah, in the early days, when we first did Profiler training, years ago, over half a decade ago, we didn't have all of the community stuff dialed in as much as we do now. There was a community. We had a lot of Facebook groups and things, but I've realized that part of what makes Profiler training certification course so powerful is every year when a new group of students come in, because we only allow a certain amount of students to come in every year so we can keep the quality control of the community and the high level of people that are involved. That has become almost a benefit that in and of itself, just having access to people, the alumni that have been there, the new students that you're going through the program together with, it's great because it's people can break out and they've created study buddy situations where people offline from us in your own space can then have study time. You can make friendships and connect with people that are studying something at a high level like you are, reaching for mastery. It's become one of the highlights of the program. And Kimberly, to her credit, really was instrumental in helping us develop this it was emerging, and she helped us put a lot of formality to this to make it even more powerful for you if you decided to enroll in the program. So it's really exciting, and it's almost a network effect in that it's starting to become like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts with everybody interacting and all the different feedback and all the different nuance of people understanding the system. And we've had a whole group of people come through and become certified just in this past year, just a few months ago. If you go to the site, you'll be able to see a whole listing of our brand new people that just got certified recently. And it's so exciting to see people now taking that and applying it in their own like coaching practices or businesses. And we'll hear about some of those case studies in a moment here. But just it's exciting to see the community. I'm a people person, so I love the idea of being able to connect with you in that community, having an intimate space where we can start to develop mastery together. Mm-hmm. And I keep harping on it, I guess, it's one of my favorite parts of the entire program. I mean, the content's great, don't get me wrong. I love the content, all that stuff, all the theory you understand and all the practicality, but that community supporting you through the experience and the peer review and the support and the accountability and the encouragement that you receive, I think, from the community is really, really powerful. So I can't speak to that enough.
Somebody asked when it starts, we have a batch of what's called early bird people who took advantage of our early bird special in August. Everybody will get access and enrollment tomorrow. That's when enrollment officially starts. But the syllabus begins at the first week of January. So you have some time between now and the first week of January to just glut all the information if you want to. That's one way to go about it. Or you can wait for the syllabus to begin in January. And so that's what happens.
And as soon as we close enrollment, we will have our first orientation this month, just in a few days, just to get everybody orientated. It won't be a requirement, but we'd love to get you started to know what's going to be coming in January when the class starts. So right away, within a few days from now, this recording, we're going to have that orientation live for you to be able to join when you join the program.
Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff you figure out is our meta system that allows you to quickly and accurately profile people. You'll learn common mistakes that a lot of people make when they think they're really good at typing people. You've probably been on forums and Facebook groups where people are like, I'm super good at it. Well, there's some beginner mistakes that a lot of people make and they don't realize that they're making. So we'll go through a lot of those. Somebody asked me, I think it was Tarek, who's a friend, hi Tarek, asked if we ever do physical cues, and we do. There's a couple of Profiler tools that we talk about physical cues in both men and women to determine their cognitive functions, and some of the physical things you should be looking out for. And how to, basically decipher some of the counterintuitive stuff, the stuff that looks one way but actually is the other. So we determine all of that. And you also gain access to the Profiler Training private community, which, like we mentioned, is 123 members. You get an invitation to all.
It'll be more after
It'll
this.
be more after that.
Because you're joining. So.
That's right. Profiler Training live events. You get unlimited access to all the monthly Q&As, which is over 70 hours of recorded Q&As so far, but we do them every month faithfully, and you'll get access to all of those. And of course, you'll get the peer review and feedback from your fellow students and alumni that help you determine that you're good. And you'll have an opportunity to become a Personality Hacker certified profiler. And so, so we talk a little bit about the two types of people who go through Profiler Training certification. You have something you want to say?
Just wanted to mention really quick about this too, is we also will do special one-off pieces of content throughout the year. So this is the stuff that we're promising, and then because we just, I don't know, I think we're crazy people that just love to deliver value. I don't know what it is, but we'll show up and we'll do, like one of the things that we added last year is we did, I think it was 3 different sessions where we took a half-hour TV show, and Tony and I sat down and we recorded our observations of the types in that TV show. And we started adding that as content as well, because we're looking for ways for you to learn from all different angles. And every time we come up with an idea that, oh, this would help the community, the Profiler Training community, learn more about profiling, either the system in theory or in practicality, which is really what we like to focus on, is how do you apply this? We'll sit down and we'll do a little recording. We'll do a one-off recording or maybe even a short little series, and we'll add that in as a bonus, just as an extra that we're not really, quote-unquote, advertising or telling you about here. But I just want to let you know that our goal, like we're committed, we are the community that's there already, and our team is committed to making you the best profiler possible. We'd love to see you get certified and to really understand the system on a deep level. So we're always looking for ways to co-create an experience where we can help you augment your experience and become that master profiler that you'd like to be. So I just want to make that quick comment before you run into the two.
It was so funny. You're like, because we're crazy people that like to provide value. We're so nuts.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. It just was funny.
We're so nuts.
We're so crazy. You'll have an exciting life with this laptop.
I do look like some crazy, like...
Somebody said you dress like a cult leader.
I think I look like somebody from like the 70s. Yeah. Like somebody in like one of those like Mountain Man movies,
right.
But dressed better. Like if you took a Mountain Man and cleaned them up. And
Russell Brand and squished them together.
Yeah.
That would be
if a
you.
Mountain Man and Russell Brand had a baby, that's what I would look like.
Okay.
I don't know.
So who is it for? It's for two types of people. It's for the profile enthusiast who's looking to improve and calibrate their profiling skills. So if you've been studying typology for a while, are you looking for practical techniques to help you profile more accurately and quickly? Are you familiar with a lot of the theories? Like you already knew how to reverse engineer the dichotomies into cognitive functions. You already know that, but you're looking for a place to actually be able to get that second and third component of mastery. You're looking for peer review, credible mentors, and also a community. If that is you, the Profiler Training program is right for you. If you're a profiling enthusiast, and if you're a profiling careerist who is looking for a career related to typology. And actually, I would say it's like 50-50 right now in our course. 50% are people who just love the system and want to know more about it and also be able to be really rock solid profilers. And the other 50% are people who use it in their careers. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the cooler ways that people have used it in their careers. You can use it either as a profiler, right? Like, I mean, there are people right now who are setting up businesses that are doing consultations for profiling. And there's a lot of people who use it in coaching, or they use it in human resources and some other cool things. And if that's what you're looking for right now, to have an element of this be put into your career, then the Profiler Training program is right for you.
I hesitate to say this because I don't want you to assume that just by joining the program this is the case, but we have from the profiling student group, like the students that have gone through and become certified, we actually have hired consultants here for our business and at Personality Hacker from that grouping, because we help train them and we know what they can do, and we've observed them through their entire experience of getting certified, and we know they know their stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of quality control there, and so we've hired basically from within. From this grouping, we've been able to hire people to be consultants for us. So when people come on to our site in our business and say, hey, I'd like to talk to somebody in real time, there's only 2 of us, and we were getting stretched so thin that we needed to beef up some of our consultants, so we were able to have more people that could do profiling sessions through Skype or on the internet. So That's another possibility. I hate to say that because it's not a promise or a job offer, but it is something we have done in the past. If that's something that you're interested in, and you become really a master at it.
Yeah, actually, we don't hire consultants that haven't gone through Profile training. Actually, so somebody said, "Is the course ideal for people who are new to profiling?" Actually, we don't make any assumptions that you know anything. We make the assumption that you're coming in. Actually, I hate to say it, but it's better if you don't know anything, because a part of the challenge is unlearning people from bad habits. So if you don't know anything, you're ideal. We love that, because then you're able to learn these principles and this application without trying to sort of shoehorn what you already know into the process. And so we actually like it when people don't know anything. But if you already do have a strong background in it, that's okay too. As long as you come with a beginner's mind. That's the number one thing, is that you got to come with a beginner's mind, because there are certain components which are elements of confusion that people have introduced into typology that we go back through, and there's like there's a lot of paradigm shifts for people who go through profiler training and looking at this content in a new way. And the reason why they're there is because we've been doing this for almost a decade, and there was a lot of stuff that we had to learn the hard way, assumptions we made. I've been using profiling and coaching for 8 years now. And in my early days, I was profiling people way wrong because I had a lot of the misconceptions shoved in my head. And it was through a lot of painful test iterate where I realized that that's actually not how it works, even though that's the common wisdom. So as long as you come with a beginner's mind, you can know as much as you want. And if you don't know anything, that's ideal because it helps, because you don't have to unlearn any of the bad habits. All right. Do you have anything more? Because I was going to actually hand it over to Kimberly to talk about.
Let's do it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to hand us over to Kimberly. And Kimberly is our profiler training community leader, and she's the person who's put together a lot of the community aspects. So Kimberly, are you on right now?
We actually, as she's coming on, I'll just say this about Kimberly. It's really hard. We've gone round and around about what her actual title is, because she, she does a lot, and she really facilitates the community piece. And really, I would say that a lot of the community stuff that we do now is because Kimberly's leadership. She was actually a student, and she said, "Hey guys, have you thought about doing this and this?" And she named all these things, and we're like, not really. Maybe that would be really cool. Or yeah, we thought about that. We don't have anybody to do it. And she just stepped into leadership as a student, started doing it, and then all of a sudden she's working with us, and things amazing are happening. I mean, it wasn't all of a sudden. We obviously hired her. But, so it's a little difficult to figure out her title because she does so much amazing work that we're really excited to have her be part of this piece. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you. I'm super excited about the class of 2018. And the reason I am is because every time a new class comes in, it's just full of amazing people. There are already 33 people in your class, and I've met most of them. They're the early birds, and we have them from Australia and New Zealand to Japan, all over North America and Europe, even Rio de Janeiro this year, and Burma. So it really is all over the world. Past classes have even had people from the Middle East and from Africa. So I'm hoping that those trends continue, because the more people we have from all over the world, the better perspective everybody in the class can get about how types show up across cultures, across different experiences. It just is so exciting when somebody joins from another country, another culture. So in 2018, it really is, I can honestly say, going to be the best year of profiler training, because every year is better. We make it better every year. We're updating it and changing it and tweaking it and trying to do all the things that Joel and Antonio were talking about in helping you become proficient and mastering the skill. So I'm super excited to work with all of you in the coming year. Before I joined profiler training, I was seriously operating from a place of scarcity. I found Myers-Briggs and I thought, oh my gosh, there's feelers everywhere. I'm an ENTJ and there's sensors everywhere. I'm never going to be able to find the kind of conversation I crave. And I joined profiler training, and that stupid belief was absolutely blown out of the water. I have such a feeling of abundance now because of the community that is there, the connections I've made, and it's just been amazing. So my story, I'm an ENTJ, so that means I use effectiveness and perspectives. I grew up kind of all over the world. I spent most of my childhood in Hawaii, and I joined the military. I was a go-getter. I was on top of the world. I was the fastest person to get E6 in the Alaska unit that I was in. I was the first female to be a flight engineer in a Black Hawk. I was just killing it. I was Soldier of the Year in 2013, and I got deployed 6 months after my husband. So this is where kind of my life started to, get a little shaky. So I got deployed to Mosul. I was a door gunner on a VIP mission, and I got to fly around Condoleezza Rice. We escorted Donald Rumsfeld. I flew generals around the entire time I was there. And it was a pretty sweet deal going to all the sheiks' houses and the mayor's house and just really immersed in the culture there. Learned to love goat immensely. So my life was going pretty good, except that I had lost a baby right before I got deployed. And we lost a helicopter about 8 months into my tour. And in classic ENTJ style, I just kept going, chop, chop, get it done, lead my people. And inside I was falling apart. So I ultimately ended up coming home early. And when I came home, I was struggling to rectify these two people. The person who was better than most of the men, could give them a run for their money, shooting and running and all of those military things, with the person who had to turn in her gun and say, I can't do this anymore. I have to go home. It destroyed my military career. They would never promote me again. I was done. And so what do you do with that kind of information? And so I spent several years just kind of, hunkered down, probably in an FI grip. And I found Myers-Briggs, and I was like, oh, this might answer some of the questions. This might tell me what happened. And so I started digging and digging and digging. And as you probably know, there are so many resources for Myers-Briggs. It's like endless. A YouTube channel, a blog, this one, that one, over here. They're contradictory. It's confusing. Does that mean FI or does that mean FE? I don't know. And so when I found Personality Hacker, it was finally like a system that was, one, consistent, and two, I could take the patterns that they gave me, go out in the real world and go, oh, yes, that's it. That actually makes sense. And that was just with the free content. So I started doing research, and when the cart opened for me 2 years ago, I joined. Ta-da! I was right where you are 2 years ago. And I slammed through all that material in about 2 weeks. I just consumed it like a junkie. And then I went back again, and I, slowed down and really dug into it. And it was just fascinating to start seeing all the patterns and for it to all make sense, and for me to no longer see myself as broken, never fixable, whatever. All of those things, all those beliefs started to crumble, not only because of Myers-Briggs, but also because of my exposure to the amazing people in profiler training. So I won't say that profiler training fixed my life and everything's amazing and all my relationships are repaired, but it has given me a vehicle for getting from broken to mostly, amazing. So I have a fondness for Myers-Briggs and obviously for Personality Hacker. And as Joel and Antonia mentioned, I kind of, took over and started leading, and I kind of became who I was before. The person who was willing to step into the gap, the person who was willing to say, come on, follow me. And that was huge for me. And so now I run profiler training for Joel and Antonia. I also profile for them, and I have a little bit of a side hustle where I profile as well. I had 2 sessions last week where I was actually paid $300 for each of those sessions, profiling some high, very visible people, like people who have TED Talks, and it was just amazing to get to talk to those people. And I also now am starting my own coaching business, and I have my first paying client, woohoo! And it's been a journey. So profiler training can take you somewhere. It depends on how you want to apply it. And in some of my case studies, like the people I'm going to tell you about, some of my friends from profiler training, you'll see kind of the diversity of the ways you can use it. You don't all have to be coaches. You don't all have to start profiling, but there's just a lot of leverage that can be gained for you if it's something you want. So one of the first people I wanted to bring to your attention is Betsy. Betsy is an ENFJ, which means she uses perspectives and harmony. And I honestly, not joking, was a little afraid of harmony. Whoa, those people can see things I can't. They see a whole layer of stuff that freaks me out. And Betsy took me in. She's married to an ENTJ. I kind of remind her of her husband. And she showed me through just her being who she is, how amazing Effie is. So Betsy has 5 kids. She's currently living in Georgia. She homeschooled all 5 of those kids, so she's like super kick-ass and possibly slightly insane, but in the best way. When she joined, she had a coaching business, but it wasn't thriving the way she wanted it to. She was kind of suffering for the imposter syndrome. Like, am I bringing value? Can I really charge people for this? Like all of those demons that everybody deals with when they're leveling up. That's where Betsy was when she joined. So she came to profiler training and she started learning all of these systems, to help people. And she has accuracy in her stack, and it just really appealed to her how Antonia teaches. So she got in there, and now she uses all the tools she learned uniquely. She does profiling sessions with a storyboarding method. She like rolls out a big piece of brown paper, and she actually starts drawing while people are telling her what's going on as she asks questions. It's a very visual process for her because she's an artist. So she's taken the tools that Joel and Antonia have given her and turned it into her own unique thing that she helps her clients with. And so now she has been able to double the fee that she charges for coaching. She has a side hustle where she does profiling sessions, and then she also flips some of those customers that she profiles into paying clients for her coaching business. So Betsy is like super rad. And bonus, she has volunteered because she's certified to be a mentor next year. So some of you are going to get to work with Betsy personally. Like you'll be in her small group and she'll be answering questions and working with you and mentoring you. And I'm super excited for those of you that get hooked up with Betsy. I'm excited for all people who are mentoring. I won't get to cover all of them because I really had to pick. There's just so many amazing people I could tell you about. But Betsy is one of the people who's going to be front and center for several of you in this group tonight.
Hey,
the second person.
Kimberly, just before we move on, because somebody asked, Betsy's an INFJ, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Did I not say INFJ?
I'm
said, sorry.
I think you said ENFJ, but it doesn't matter. I just want to make sure that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
She's an INFJ.
No. My apologies.
So she's not amazing,
Yeah.
and she's an introvert.
Yeah, exactly.
She won that one.
And one thing I just want to mention really quick, because as you were talking about both your experience and Betsy's experience, somebody asked if they wondered if their workplace would allow them to use professional enrichment funds to complete this. If I just want to mention that to the person who asked it in case you have to leave early, we have actually had a couple people utilize that in their workplace, that they use professional enrichment, HR services. And if you want to ask more information around that, please shoot us an email and we can provide you some resources to take to your work, to HR department or to your company to help you if that was something that would actually really enrich your current job situation. So the answer is yes to that. All right. Sorry, Kimberly, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please
That's
continue.
Okay. Jump in whenever you want. It's your show anyway, right? So the second person I want to bring to your attention, totally on the other side of the spectrum from Betsy, is Dan. Dan joined in 2016. He's a Canadian, and he is an INTP, so he uses accuracy exploration. And one of the things he specifically told me that he loves about profiler training is that the way Antonia teaches, how nuanced she is with what she brings, and it appealed to his TI. Like, it wasn't fluff. It was real and tangible, and he's a TI driver, so you know that this stuff isn't joking around. So Dan is a computer programmer by trade, and he also works in mentorship and coaching in his free time. So he actually coaches. He's a pretty big deal, and he and I got along really well. And about 8 months ago, he and I read Spiral Dynamics together. So that's another bonus to joining profiler training, is the extra rabbit holes that you can travel with people that you identify with. You can totally break off and read something else. My year, we did a whole bunch of Enneagram stuff amongst ourselves. So there's just so many opportunities to make this what you want it to be. Dan joined profiler training to, of course, learn the nuances of cognitive functions, and like, he really appealed to his TI. But the challenge he was having was resentment at work, like not understanding TE. Why are these deadlines there? It all seemed so manufactured, and it wasn't making sense to him. And then also struggling with just relationships with his family. So when he got in there and really understood the cognitive functions and embodied them, he was able to go back to work and go, oh, I get it now. I get it. And now he says he's able to communicate in a way that shows he does understand what is meaningful to his employers. He does get it, and he's able to show up better at work. And he said, added bonus with his family, it helped with all of the relationships, but a surprise for him was how much it helped with his father, because his father is a bit of a mystery to the whole family. He figured out that his dad is an SI driver. So Dan is an INTP, so he kind of understands SI memory stuff. But now he's like, oh, so this last summer, he was able to go on a trip with his dad and really get to understand his dad and repair that relationship and really make it amazing. So as Antonia mentioned earlier, it is not your fate to be misunderstood if FE is in the back of your car. As a matter of fact, I find FE in the back of the car like super endearing. It's just so fun. The third person I wanted to bring to you is Greg. And if you got the email yesterday or the day before, you may have already kind of met Greg. But his story is like super fantabulous, so I wanted to highlight him anyway. Greg is from Kansas. He is an ENFJ, so he has harmony and perspectives, and he is a hostage negotiator. Yes, you heard that correctly. He's a hostage negotiator. Isn't that like crazy? And he's using this in real time to like potentially save lives. So he's doing this job. It's super intense. Imagine like you're in a barricaded subject behind a door, has hostages, and it's your job to understand this person and all that stress and communicate with them where they're at and try to get them to come out to you. And so he uses profiler training to level up his game as a hostage negotiator. As a matter of fact, I think it was 3-4 months ago, he was like, I have to tell you a story. So we hopped on a call. I was like, okay, so what's up, Greg? He says, okay, so I was in a barricaded situation, somebody behind a door, and I used profiler training to roughly figure out that this guy was most likely using FI. Then I could craft my message to reach this individual who was like super stressed out, obviously, and bring him out by appealing to his values and how he connected to his family and what would that mean to him and all of those things. And he was able to close that situation without any violence. Of course, I don't know super detailed stuff because, it's a real life situation. He couldn't divulge many details. But after the fact, his boss noticed and was like, okay, so what happened there? Like, can you break that down for me? And he's like, yeah, it's Myers-Briggs, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you. And he says, okay, you have to teach all of this. And so he's been kind of teaching his fellow coworkers how to identify, how to use these tools to better bring these really stressful situations to a close. And that is like so crazy to me that he's good enough that he can use it in those stressful situations in real time. It's just fantastic. And like Antonia said, his chief of police I think it's his chief of police, could be a detective. Sorry if I messed that up, Greg, was considering paying for his course, and they're working on getting monies to possibly send through with you a few of his fellow coworkers. So that's another real-time way that somebody is using it. You don't just have to be a coach to be using profiler training. It is so multifaceted. I mean, in what line of work would you not benefit from being able to understand the people around you better, to be able to communicate with the people above you, the people below you? Like, it's so amazing. The last person I wanted to bring to you is Emily. And as Joel and Antonia mentioned, we do have sensors in the class. Like, bust that myth wide open. The sensors are amazing. I love having them in the class. They bring to profiler training of the full perspective so that we can't sit around and be the intuitives wondering what the sensor experience is like. We can just ask them, hey, Emily, what's it like? So Emily is an ESFP. So she actually leads with sensation, and her co-pilot is authenticity. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She's young. I forgot to ask her age. I think she's in her late 20s. She's super fun, super cute. She is in a musical band called, let me make sure I get that right. The Morris Sisters. They perform live at like farmers markets and stuff. She is also the owner and founder of a business called Spanish Lessons with Emily. So she's a teacher. She has 10 people that she manages. And when she came to profiler training, she was struggling with being behind the computer screen all the time. Like, her 10-year-old of effectiveness was just like, I have to manage these people and there's so much to do and it's so hard. And through profiler training, She was able to understand, okay, that's my 10-year-old process. That's not going to give me much energy. How am I using that? How does this look? Okay, I can delegate. So in the past year, she's been able to delegate a whole bunch of stuff so that she can do what she loves in teaching. And she's also used the knowledge that she has from profiler training to not only craft how she teaches, but how she teaches her teachers. So she is upping her game as a business owner and how she communicates with her customers and her employees. So, one thing that she does that I think is super cool is she did a 4K biathlon with her dog. And she just does like all this sensor stuff that nobody else brings to the table. And she shared with us last year some of her notes, and they were all doodles and pictures, and they were super amazing. We had her share those. So once you're in profiler training, you can search for her in the Facebook page, and you'll get to see some of her stuff and like how her mind works and how she visualized the material and turned it into a story for herself to be able to remember. So those are just a few of the amazing people that are in the class that you will be able to interact with, to meet with, to ask questions to learn from, and to teach using your experience, because every new person brings another layer of amazingness to this class. Like, I'm so excited to meet the people who join this year. And so some things that you have to look forward to as a student. They've already covered some of them, but I'm going to touch on them anyway. As they said, you'll get all the materials at once. That means you join, you enroll, you get it all. You can just like suck all that up as fast as you want. It's all yours. Okay. That's what I did. Like, I was totally a junkie. My husband thought I was insane. So you can do that if you want, and then go back and really dig in with us in the syllabus, which will start the first week of January. I will be guiding you through, we'll be posting weekly. This is what we're talking about. We'll have discussions. It'll be interactive. It'll be, peer, everybody brings something new to the table. And this addresses one of the major concerns that I hear when people ask me about profiler training or new students. What about motivation? What if I don't have what it takes to finish this class? What do I do? How do I stay focused? Just stay with me, keep up, participate, and you will get there. Like, don't worry about that piece. Just get there and do each incremental assignment as it comes weekly in Slack, and you'll be fine. Okay. Slack is nice. It's simple. And it also keeps all of your stuff in one place. That way you're not fighting with Facebook, like, which one of these many things is my class? So there's Slack for like the official class for the new students. And then we also have Facebook, because Facebook is kind of fun, but you don't have to do Facebook. So that's a fun place to go. Everybody hangs out. We post videos. What do you think this person's type is? I just had this epiphany. So imagine all the Myers-Briggs groups you're probably in, without the trolls, without the, please help me, what type am I? Without the selfie feeds that kind of can clog up your Facebook page, and put a whole bunch of amazing people who actually are not just dabblers in Myers-Briggs, who have learning minds, who are deeply diving into it. And that is the Facebook group. So as soon as you join, I'll let you in. It's a super secret group. Nobody can find it. I have to like invite you and let you in, and I will invite you, and you can come hang out with all the past students and get to know everybody, or just lurk. You can also just lurk. That's an okay option. So I think that is about it. I just can't tell you enough how excited I am about meeting you and including you in my circle, my tribe, the people that make me better, because that is ultimately what I see for everybody who seriously takes profiler training, is that we are all better. We all grow, we're all growth minded, and we're all getting where we want to be. So thank you so much for coming aboard.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly, so much. Actually,
You're
somebody
welcome.
in the chat said, "You're awesome, Kimberly," and I can't echo that more. Kimberly, like,
Thank you.
it's important to understand how important it is to get familiar with Kimberly, because Kimberly is so instrumental in profiler training. So I really appreciate you hopping on, Kimberly, giving us all those case studies, all the different ways that people, like different types of people who have come on and how they apply it, and to tell us your story too, because I noticed a lot of vulnerability in there, which is one of the ways that you've integrated your introverted feeling 3-year-old. And so, yeah, you are an illustration of that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You are very welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Kimberly.
All right. So Kimberly is clearly awesome. And Somebody said, dang it, I wish I were our ENTJ. But see, that's the cool thing is that when you enter Proflyer training, you get to figure out how amazing, like, literally every type is. And all of your superhero stuff. And Kimberly is a superhero. She wears a cape. Like, there's no question about that. But she's not the only one. So, yeah, she is pretty amazing.
I secretly wish I was an ENTJ sometimes, too.
Oh, you
They get
totally wish that all the
They get a
time.
lot of stuff done.
I never wish I was an ENTJ.
Sometimes.
but I do wish I was an FJ a lot. Probably because that's not my superpower. Oh, anyway. So, people saying, Kimberly, that they admired your energy and your message. And we're lucky to have her as the community manager. She's amazing. You're not kidding. You are not kidding. She is amazing. All right. So to get the show on the road, because we recognize that we're going a little long, we just want to make sure that we answer some questions. And we mentioned, like, there's been some questions we've answered in the chat room, but we also have some, like, basically frequently asked questions. One of the major questions we get is, how is this different than just what's in the podcast? Because if you're a Personality Hacker podcast listener, you've probably gotten a lot of information. But Kimberly just mentioned the difference. The difference is that in the podcast, there's a lot of content in the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about personal development. We talk about various elements of the types. But this is a deep dive. This is way, way, way spelunking into the cave. All right. This is not just like shallow information. This is a syllabus filled with a lot of deep, rich content. And again, what is required for mastery, it's the community element. So one of the major advantages that this gives you is that it gives you a lot of other enthusiasts and people who are using it for their careers to really sharpen the saw. So it is a different experience than simply absorbing the information in the podcast. I'm in other courses. Should I still join? You can if you want, but my recommendation is that if you're in another deep course, that maybe you wait a year, maybe wait until next year for enrollment, because this is immersive.
Yeah.
It's kind of like learning a language.
Well, if you're in one of our other courses, I would say it might work out.
Yeah.
If you're in one of our other courses, because it augments or complements
Right.
it. But if you're in a course that's outside of Personality Hacker, you might want to wait, because this is a very intense course. And again, there's no external pressure from us. You have to do this on a timeline. But if you want to learn it, we're there to support you in that first year to really understand the material. And I think it's good to set aside time. I don't know why my words are jumbling. In order to focus on this. So I think it would be good for you to focus on this specifically.
Yeah, this is kind of like the difference between learning a language in high school and going to France for 6 months. All right. So, like, if you're learning other languages, maybe you shouldn't go to France for 6 months, right? If you're learning, if you're learning Mandarin, you don't go to France. So if you're in other immersive courses, then this might not be the right time for you. But if you're not, and you are ready to go down this rabbit's hole, please consider it, because it is it is an experience, and it will suck you in, like Kimberly was talking about.
Yeah.
How much time do I need to invest to learn this material? We usually tell people to assume that they're going to be spending about 3 or 4 hours a week for up to 10 months. Most of the certification happens in October, and it goes from January to October for the syllabus. So we recommend that you spend some serious time on this. Our observation is that when people go down this rabbit's hole, they don't spend 3 or 4 hours in it. They spend 10 or 20 or maybe even more. They not deeply in learning, but in just thinking about it. They apply it to literally everything which it can be applied to. So there are people who get obsessed and think about it constantly, and other people who go through it more routinely. But we recommend a couple hours a week to really get good at it.
And it's not just the learning piece, it's also applying it. And it can be really fun when you're out at the grocery store or other places. Take some of the little things you're learning and apply them to understanding people's types, practicing that in real life. So it's a fun thing. It's not literally 10 hours or 4 hours or whatever hours you put in just studying, watching videos, and data dumping into your mind. It's also applying it in your life and getting real world feedback.
Mm-hmm. What type of people am I going to be learning with?
We just basically covered that.
Yeah, we just covered it with professionals. We have a psychotherapist. We have somebody who just finished her internship to be a psychiatrist. So we have a psychiatrist in there. We have a hostage negotiator in there. We have a lot of...
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. We have a lot of people who are coaches and who use this in their personal lives. We have coaches of coaches. You can kind of get a sense for the kind of people who we have. And we have a lot of people. We have some stay-at-home moms. We have people who uses it in HR.
One gentleman, he and his wife own a an Olympic training facility for gymnasts, and he wanted to understand his team and the staff that works at this Olympic training facility in Texas. So he took the course to understand that more.
Right. So he can profile his gymnasts to help get them to, world-class level. So yeah, we've got a lot of people with very interesting and diverse backgrounds. How much attention and feedback can I expect from instructors? You get a side into the community. You've got a lot of community involvement. We are there for a monthly Q&A come rain or shine. We've been doing it for 5 years now, a monthly Q&A every month for 5 years.
We record them and post them in the members area as well. If you can't make it live, you can listen back to it.
Yeah, and so we are always there for the Q&As. We're involved in the Facebook community. And you will get a ton of experience from other mentors and instructors. We're there at live events. We host a live event every year, like a physical live event that you get invited to. And there's a lot of involvement. So you'll get a lot of attention and feedback from instructors and personally from us as well. So let's talk a little bit about, before we enter tuition, and as soon as we're done and complete with this, we'll tell you who the winners of the sweepstakes is. So just to let you know that that's coming up in just a couple minutes.
Envelopes.
But one thing that we've added this year is a Proflyer Training 5-day retreat. Now, this is a complete luxury retreat. We're going to Portland, Oregon, to McMenamins Edgefield, which is an amazing space if you've ever heard of it. It's an incredible space that we'll be doing a 5-day deep dive retreat in. And we're actually limiting it to how many people we're inviting in or allowing into the 5-day retreat. This is a brand new package that we're just offering this year for the first time ever. And we're throwing everything in. This will be an intimate setting. We'll have coaching. We'll have group coaching. We'll have deep dive into Proflyer training. We'll have a lot of breakout sessions. We're going to throw in luxury elements like making sure that you have spa. There's a spa there, so we'll make sure that you get some massages and that we'll have just like a really luxury experience, as well as a gift bag, which includes a lot of goodies, a lot of personality hacker goodies, and a lot of like other goodies as well. So this is the Uber package. This is the VIP 5-day retreat. And this is not the live retreat we do every year. We're going to invite you to that as well. Without this 5-day retreat package, you get an invitation to the live event every year, but this is something else. This is something that is a lot more intimate, a lot more together, a lot more deep dive into various things like how generational theory comes up and spiral dynamics, and a deep dive into multiple different theories, how socioeconomic levels, how gender plays into Proflyer training, our families and our family dynamics, and just a really true deep dive 5-day retreat. So this is our Uber VIP package. Not everybody will be necessarily interested in this, but we highly recommend giving it some strong consideration because it's going to be a real treat.
So just as a kind of a metaphor for you, if you're looking at like an airplane, getting on an airplane, the airplane is Proflyer training. And this, what we're talking about here, is first class. This is sitting in the first class area of having a really rich, deep experience on the quote-unquote plane, the metaphor of a plane that is Proflyer training. Mm-hmm. So this is the highest end package that we have, the VIP package that we're talking about here.
Yes, that's right. And again, this is new, and we're super excited about it. Somebody asked, when is the retreat? It's in April. It would be mid to late April in Portland, Oregon at McMenamins Edgefield. And we're going to give all the information online on the page that talks about all of this information. So read up on it. If this is the thing that you're interested in, we've got some different tuition plans for it. So we'll talk about that in just a minute, but we highly recommend you give it some consideration because it's gonna be amazeballs. I'm really excited about it. All right, so here are the tuition options. Proflyer Training Certification course has a tuition of $2,497. And we have a lot of different payment plans to fit your budget. We recognize that that can be a chunk of change immediately, and we get that. We get that it is a chunk of change. So this is an investment, all right? This is an investment of resource. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of your heart. It's an investment of your soul. This is a big deal, so we recognize that. And we've got a lot of different payment plans that fit your budget. We can chunk them down to a couple different payment plans, or we've got up to 6 or 7 month payment plans. So whatever is reasonable for you, we like to work with people and make it so that this can fit in their budget. And as been mentioned, we also have some resources for people who want to see if their company would help subsidize some of this package. And so let us know. Let us know what your circumstances are, and we'll do what we can to help facilitate that for you.
Yeah.
Now, the Profire Training Certification course plus the Profire Training 5-day retreat is a one-time upfront payment of $7,495. You get a 6% discount if you buy it upfront. But we also have 3-month and 6-month payments, which you can see on the screen. 3-month payments for 3 months is $2,665, and the 6-month is $1,397 for the 6-month payment. So this is the VIP situation. This is like a big deal. And so if that's something that you're interested in and you want to have more conversation around it, please let us know that too. We can, shoot us an email and we can talk about that, what that will look like, and maybe have some one-on-one on that if that's something that you're interested in and want to do a deeper dive into.
Yeah, we want you to make the right decision for you. And the VIP package is going to be limited, so not everyone's going to be able to join that. So there's only a limited amount of spots that we can have for that. So we're expecting to have some demand for it, so there'll be some limitation there. But basically, if you do need to talk through, either us or someone on the team can basically help you make a decision between these two packages, these two main packages, and then talk about the payment plans and the structure of that. If that's something you need, shoot us an email and we'll go ahead and have that conversation to help you decide what's right for you and what all the details are there. We're going to give you a link in a minute for you to read all of the information for yourself first. That might answer most of your questions. And then if there's still a decision point that you need to make, let us know and we'll talk about it.
All right. So this is for that package. That's everything. You get everything for that particular package. Somebody asked, what if you can't make it the retreat? Then don't get the package. The package is about the retreat. So you would want to do the Profire Training Certification course, which is a full, rich course all by itself. But if you can't make those dates, then that you don't consider that package, because that's the point of it, is that 5-day retreat. So that will help you make that decision for yourself. But remember, the 5-day retreat plus the certification course is the entire shipping. If you can't make those 5 days, then go for the Profire Training Certification course 2.0. All right. So hopefully that answered that question. All right. And of course, we always do 90-day, 100%. It's called the Profile Perfect Guarantee, which is effectively within 90 days, if you ask for a refund, we give you a refund, no questions asked. And that's actually the first 90 days is when a lot of stuff happens. So you should be able to get a very strong concept of whether or not this is right for you. And somebody asked before, do we do a profiling session to make sure everybody's type is right? And the answer is yes. That's one of the bonuses, is that you get a consultation with you and a personality hacker consultant to make sure that you know what your type is accurately, and you get a flavor of what that profiling session will look like and what you'll be eventually doing as well. So yes, you get your profiling session, you get all of your content, you get hooked up with mentors, all that stuff that happens in the first 90 days. So if in the first 90 days you go, this is not right for me, then we go ahead and give you your money back. No questions asked. All right. So enrollment begins tomorrow, but if you're on this webinar, we're going to give you a link so that you can do early enrollment. But everybody will get their content tomorrow. That's when enrollment begins. And then enrollment ends Tuesday the 19th, and then you can't do Profire training again for a whole year. All right, so it ends a little less than 2 weeks from now.
This is assuming that we don't fill up our entire class before the 19th. So this 19th is assuming that we haven't actually hit our number. And I don't remember that off the top of my head, but there's a number of people that we're going to limit on this year, so that we can really make sure everybody gets a great experience. We don't want thousands of people to join, right? Because then it gets diluted. So there's a certain amount of people for both the packages there. And when we hit that number, if we hit it before the 19th, we're going to go ahead and close enrollment. We'll let you know through email and things of that nature as it comes down the pike. But one of the reasons why I want to allow you tonight to be able to enroll is to go ahead and lock that in. And we already have 33 people that have committed. I believe I want to give the number 120 total. Is that right? Or 150 total. Is that correct? Of people that we're going to allow in?
Yeah.
And 33 of those are already registered. So
I think it was 150, so we already have
so there's
over 30.
118 slots still open. 118.
117.
117. I can't do math.
Math. Whatever.
Math. You don't need math in life.
Don't need math.
Yeah, so basically when that number is reached, or the 19th, whichever comes first, that's when enrollment ends. I just want to be clear that if you're like, you waited till the 19th and it's like, oh wait, I thought you guys said it was till the 19th. I just want to make that clear just in case you were banking on that.
And we do an orientation for the class the very next day on the 20th. So it's important to make sure that you get your materials and you're all set up on the 19th, because we immediately enter orientation. And then, of course, in less than 2 weeks, the syllabus begins. So it's going to be important that you make the date. And somebody said, with the package, can we request Kimberly? Well, of course, Kimberly will be at the retreat, of course. And yes, you can request Kimberly if you go for the VIP package. Absolutely. And Kimberly's amazing. So obviously at least one person's fallen in love. I fell in love with her before, so I'm not surprised at all. But yes, you may. Somebody said, as someone who joined late, is the replay available? It is. After this, we'll have the replay available. Okay, so are we good? Is there anything else? Are we complete?
This is great.
Yeah, because I think it's time to announce the sweepstakes winners.
So we did a sweepstakes. For those of you listening, if you're listening and you're like, what sweepstakes? Hopefully you knew about it, because I really feel bad if you didn't.
Yeah.
We were basically giving away 3 really incredible packages around all of the different aspects of what we teach here, what we have programs available for here at Personality Hacker. So we had a 3rd place winner. So we opened up this contest for people to go ahead and apply online for this. I think we had it was definitely over 1,000 and some entries. I think it was like around over 1,200 different entries. But basically, earlier today, the team put together one of those random number generators. So we had like this spreadsheet with all the different names on it, and a random number generator on Google. Clicked it and then pulled 3 random people from the list of all the people that applied. So
sorry, somebody's asking questions. I know that the sweepstakes is like, oh my gosh, who won?
Sure.
But I just want to answer real quick questions. The link is coming right after the sweepstakes winners for the Profiler training, so you'll have the link as soon as we're done announcing the sweepstakes winners. And somebody said the word orientation sounds scary as an introvert. Will the orientation be introvert friendly? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You're not going to be called out. It's information orientation, so don't worry about it. It's not going to call you out. But I will warn you that as an introvert, we will be pushing you out of your comfort zone. That's one of the points. Profiler training stretches you. So it's the orientation will be super friendly, but we will be ready to grow in a lot of different ways.
Gently. We're not going to...
Gently, though. We won't put it right out of... Not on the first day, but over time. All right.
So the 3rd place person, basically the second runner-up or whatever. I don't know exactly. Yeah, second runner-up.
Okay,
right?
what did they get?
Place.
The 3rd place winner.
They get Intuitive Awakening program, valued at $197. The Your Personality Owner's Manual program. The Personality Development Starter Kit for your type, or if you already have one, you can go ahead and gift this to somebody that you know. And our gift giving guide. So this is the package of the 3rd place person. I have the 3rd place. It even says 3rd place on the envelope. Can we go ahead and open that?
Okay.
And announce this person. If you're here, you're going to get an email from us. As soon as we announce this, we're going to go ahead and email you probably tomorrow. Our team might be able to email you tonight with all the details.
No. All of the emails go out tomorrow. That's the advantages of being on the webinar tonight is that you get to know early. That's the reason.
I would do a drum roll, but I don't want to make the mic go crazy.
I did a drum roll, but I'm sure I made the mic go crazy. Probably after everything up. All right, 3rd place winner is Jessica Coran from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is backwards.
Congratulations, Jessica.
Congratulations for being 3rd place winner. Are you on tonight? Are you on the webinar? Do you know immediately that you got it?
She's on.
If she's on.
All right, so that was the 3rd place winner. The 2nd place winner gets our Hardwired for Wealth program, Intuitive Awakening program, Your Personality Owner's Manual program, Raspid Customer Rapport program, the Personalities in Dating and Attraction, the Personalities in Marriage and Relationship program, the Personalities in Children and Family program, the Personality Development Starter Kit for their type or to give to somebody else if they already have one, and our gift giving guide. And this is the 2nd place envelope. Again, I'll say the word drum roll.
Right.
And you know what I mean when I say that. Just imagine in your mind's ear.
Do the beatnik snap thing. That's what we always do. The beatnik snap thing, right? Didn't they used to do those poetry slams and stuff?
I don't know. I didn't grow up in the 50s, so I have no idea.
My dad's a silent generation, so I kind of have an affinity to the beatnik generation. All right, 2nd place winner is Peter Render from Huntsville, Alabama. Peter Render.
All right.
From Huntsville, Alabama.
Congratulations,
you
Peter.
are the 1st place runner-up. Congratulations.
All right, and now the the big one, the first place winner. And then right after this, we're going to give you the link for you to register for the brand new Profiler Training Certification course if you are interested to do that. Coming up right after this, first place winner gets the Enneagram Roadmap, our brand new program we just published like 2 months ago with Beatrice Chestnut. And that's worth $497. It's a big program. It's an amazing program. Very excited about that. Hardwired for Wealth, Intuitive Awakening, Your Personality Owner's Manual, INTX Unleashed, which we just rebooted in the last month. It's not even available to get right now because we're working on some other things. So you're getting access to something you can't even get, even if you wanted to invest in it right now. INFX Unveiled, The Healing Power of Inner Parenting course, Rapid Customer Rapport, Personalities in Dating and Attraction, our Personalities in Marriage and Relationship program, Personalities in Children and Family, Personality Development Starter Kit. You get 2 of those, one for yourself, or give 2 to friends, or one for yourself and your spouse or a friend of yours, and the Gift Giving Guide. So that whole package is valued at $2,153, which is pretty cool. And our first place winner with the big, what do we call this? The kitchen sink, right? The kitchen sink.
Throwing everything
in, pretty much all the programs except for Profiler Training that we offer at Personality
It'd be cool if this person was on the webinar tonight and freaked out. That's unlikely, but
doing the whole,
because we had like over 1,000 people enter, but maybe. First place winner is Lachey Dorsey from Georgia, USA. Lachey Dorsey, you're our first place winner.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Lachey. This is pretty cool.
This is cool. This was fun, even if the person's not on and freaking out. We're going to email them tomorrow. I think it's very exciting. So everybody who entered the sweepstakes, I really want to thank you so much for doing so. This was really fun for us to be able to give away to the community something really cool. And so maybe we'll do this again next year. I don't know. It's fun. All right.
So if you're interested in joining us for Profiler Training Certification course this year coming up, we'd love to see you in the program. This is the link, personalityhacker.com/profiler training, personalityhacker.com/profiler training. You can read a ton of information. Our team has put together a great page there with all of the details that you can look through, understanding all the ins and outs of the program, all the different questions you might have. And if you still have questions at the end of reading all of that and going through all the different material, shoot us an email, info@personalityhacker.com. And our team and us will get back to you and answer your questions. We can help you decide maybe which package is right for you, maybe which payment plan is right for you. If you've got any questions about how the program looks or how it works, feel free to reach out. So go to this link right here, personalityhacker.com/profiler training. Enroll tonight. The enrollment period is now open for you that are on this webinar. You have the link, so go there. And we'd love to see you in the program. We're really excited about meeting you in person, about having you at our live events coming up this next year. If you get the VIP package, we're going to be hanging out with you for 5 days in Portland, Oregon, which is going to be really fun. And I think it's going to be an exciting experience. This is going to be one of our best years ever because we continue to improve. Like Kimberly said, it is just getting better and better every year as more and more people join. So we want to see you there. personalityhacker.com/profiler training.
Yep. And thank you so much for everybody who showed up for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Steve said, thank you for the presentation. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, let us know. Annabelle, she asked if somebody would be in the office tomorrow to answer some questions. The answer is yes. Shoot Charis, because I know you've been working with her directly for that HR piece, right, to have your company help subsidize Profiler Training. Shoot her an email at charis@personalityhacker.com tomorrow so that she can help get you set up with whatever it is that you need. Yeah. And if you guys have any questions, let us know. Vigo said, are you stationed in Portland or just the package? We are actually in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. That's because Joel's from Pennsylvania, but I'm from Oregon, and that's my old stomping grounds. I grew up like basically right by Edgefield. So we put it in a place that was my old stomping grounds to make sure that we could provide an amazing experience. It's right at the mouth of the Columbia River Gorge, which is actually where I grew up, and it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Fires notwithstanding. And so we just really wanted to make sure that it was on my home turf so that we could make an amazing experience. So that's why we're hosting it there. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Loved Oregon. Yeah, I know, right? From Bend. Cool. My first husband was from near Bend, and I love that area as well. So Oregon has my heart.
Oregon in the house.
Oregon in the house. All right, guys. Have a great night. Let us know if you have any information. info@personalityhacker.com. Love you all. See you on the podcast, and have a great night in peace.
Bye.
Bye.